Donald Trump has a tell. Whenever a black woman challenges him, he calls her angry. Maxine Waters. A very low IQ individual who's always screaming. April Ryan. Nasty and hostile. Abby Phillip. Stupid question. Every black woman who questions him gets painted with the same brush. Loud, aggressive, out of control. So when Jasmine Crockett walked onto MSNBC with a smile, Trump thought he knew exactly how to handle her. She's full of rage, he said before the first question was asked. You can see it. These people are always angry. What he didn't know, Crockett had been waiting her entire career for someone to call her angry on national television, because she was about to show America what controlled fury actually looks like. By the time she was done, without ever raising her voice, Trump would be screaming so loud producers had to cut his mic. Who was the angry one again? The setup was supposed to be simple. When MSNBC announced a special primetime event, Race and Politics in America, Trump's advisors were divided. Some thought he should skip it entirely. MSNBC was enemy territory. The audience would be hostile. The questions would be unfair. But Trump overruled them. I'm going to show them, he said in the green room 40 minutes before airtime. I'm going to show them that I'm the least racist person in this room. In any room. Nobody's done more for black people than me. Nobody. His campaign manager looked nervous. Sir, Congresswoman Crockett will be there. She's sharp. She's one of those angry ones. Trump waved his hand dismissively. You can see it. Full of rage. The audience will see right through her. I'll be calm, presidential, and she'll look like exactly what she is. What's that, sir? Trump smirked. An angry black woman. They always are. 4 floors below, in a smaller preparation room, Jasmine Crockett was reviewing her notes, but not the notes her staff expected. She wasn't reviewing policy papers. She wasn't memorizing statistics. She was studying videos. Videos of Trump describing black women. Maxine Waters, a very low IQ individual. April Ryan, very nasty, hostile. Abby Phillip, what a stupid question. Yamishal Sindor, that's a very racist question. Joy Reid, she's a racist, very angry person. Her chief of staff, Marcus Chin, watched from the doorway. You okay? Crockett didn't look up. I'm fine. You've watched those clips like 20 times. I'm memorizing them. She finally looked up. Tonight, he's going to call me angry. Probably before I even asked my first question. It's what he always does with black women. And Crockett smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. And I'm going to let him. I'm going to let him say it on live television in front of millions of people. And then I'm going to spend the next 90 minutes being the calmest person in the room while he loses his mind. She closed her laptop. By the end of the night, everyone in America is going to see who the angry one really is. Marcus shifted uneasily. What if he figures out what you're doing? Crockett laughed, a short, sharp sound. That's the beauty of it. He can't stop himself. Calling black women angry is as automatic for him as breathing. Even if someone told him right now, right this second, that it's a trap, he'd walk right into it because the stereotype is so deep in him, he doesn't even recognize it as a choice. She stood up and checked her appearance in the mirror, adjusted her jacket, smoothed an imaginary wrinkle. I've been called angry my entire life, Marcus. Every black woman has. At work, in school, in relationships. Anytime we speak up, anytime we push back, anytime we refuse to smile and nod, we're angry. We're hostile. We have an attitude problem. She turned to face him. But tonight, for the first time, someone is going to call me angry on national television in front of 40 million people. And I'm going to show everyone, not tell them, show them, that the angry black woman is a lie. That it's not a description. It's a weapon. And weapons can be turned against the people who use them. She picked up her folders, 3 of them color-coded, and headed for the door. Marcus managed a weak smile. How do you look? Crockett turned back. Her face was pleasant, composed, almost serene, the expression of a woman who had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Calm. Perfect. At 8:58 p.m. Eastern, both participants took their positions on stage. The MSNBC studio was configured for confrontation. 2 podiums facing each other, closer than usual. A moderator's desk off to the side. An audience of 200, racially diverse, politically mixed. Joy Reid stood at center stage. She'd moderated tough conversations before, but something about tonight felt different. The tension in the room was almost physical. 30 seconds, a producer called. Trump rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck. He looked confident, eager even. Crockett stood at her podium with perfect posture. Her hands were folded. Her expression was pleasant, serene, almost. The red lights blinked to life. "Good evening," Joy Reid said. "Welcome to this MSNBC special event, Race and Politics in America. Tonight, former President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett will discuss issues of race, equality, and justice in America today. Mr. President, we'll begin with your opening statement." Trump didn't wait for the formal cue. He leaned into his microphone immediately. "Thank you, Joy. And let me just say, before we even start, look." He pointed at Crockett. "Look at her. She's already full of rage. You can see it in her face. These people are always angry, always hostile. I'm here to have a civilized conversation, but you can already tell she's going to make this nasty." Joy Reid blinked. "Mr. President, the Congresswoman hasn't said anything yet. She doesn't have to. I know the type. I've dealt with them before. Maxine Waters, April Ryan. They come in angry. They stay angry. It's all they know how to do." He settled back, satisfied with his preemptive strike. Joy Reid turned to Crockett. "Congresswoman, would you like to respond?" Crockett didn't move. She didn't react. She simply stood there, hands folded, expression unchanged. Silence stretched. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Trump's smirk wavered. Finally, Crockett spoke. Her voice was soft, calm, almost gentle. "Are you done?" Trump blinked. "What? Are you done with your assessment of my emotional state? I'm just saying what everyone can see. Are you done?" The second time, she said it exactly the same way. Same tone, same volume, same slight smile. Trump's mouth opened and closed. "Good," Crockett said. "Then let's begin." She turned to Joy Reid. "I'd like to start by showing something, with your permission." Joy Reid nodded. The screen behind Crockett lit up. "The former president just called me full of rage before I said a single word. He said these people are always angry. I'd like to explore what he means by these people." On the screen appeared a series of quotes, each with a photo. Maxine Waters, black woman, low IQ individual, always screaming, very low intelligence. April Ryan, black woman, nasty, hostile, doesn't know what she's doing. Abby Phillip, black woman, that's a stupid question. Very dumb. Yamishal Sindor, black woman, racist question, very threatening. Joy Reid, black woman, angry, racist, very nasty person. Jasmine Crockett, black woman, full of rage. These people are always angry. Spoken 5 minutes ago. Crockett let the audience absorb the collage. 6 black women, all described the same way, angry, hostile, low IQ, threatening, stupid. She looked at Trump. "Mr. President, what is it about black women asking you questions that makes you so uncomfortable?" Trump shifted at his podium. "That's ridiculous. I call lots of people. Let me ask it differently." Crockett's voice remained perfectly calm. "Can you name one black woman journalist or politician you've described as intelligent, thoughtful, reasonable?" Silence. "One, Mr. President. Just one name." Trump's jaw tightened. "I've worked with many black women." "That's not what I asked. I asked if you've ever publicly described a black woman who challenged you as intelligent, as thoughtful, as anything other than angry, hostile, low IQ, or nasty." More silence. Take your time. Trump's face was starting to redden. This is ridiculous. This is exactly what I was talking about. You come in here, you make accusations. I haven't made any accusations. Crockett's voice was still serene. I've asked a question. Would you like me to repeat it? Let me explain something, Crockett said, her tone still conversational. That every black woman in America already knows. She stepped out from behind her podium and walked slowly towards center stage. Her movements were deliberate, unhurried. Angry black woman is not a description. It's a weapon. It's been used for over 200 years to silence black women, to dismiss us, to make our legitimate concerns seem like emotional outbursts. She stopped walking, faced the camera directly. Here's how it works. A black woman speaks up in a meeting, she's aggressive. A black woman asks a tough question, she's hostile. A black woman expresses frustration at injustice, she's playing the race card or being divisive. She looked at Trump. The message is always the same. The only acceptable black woman is a silent one. The only way to be taken seriously is to not challenge, not question, not push back. She walked back toward her podium, still calm, still measured. And you, Mr. President, have weaponized this stereotype your entire career. You called me full of rage before I said a single word tonight. You saw a black woman on a stage, and you immediately reached for the same label you've used for every black woman who's ever challenged you. She arrived at her podium, folded her hands again. But here's what you miscalculated. You thought calling me angry would put me on the defensive. You thought I'd get flustered, raise my voice, prove your point. She smiled. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spend the rest of this evening being the calmest person in this room. And by the end of it, everyone watching at home is going to see very clearly who the angry one really is. What followed was a master class in composure. For the next 45 minutes, Crockett asked Trump questions. Policy questions. Factual questions. Questions with documents and evidence to back them up. And through every single one, she maintained the exact same tone, calm, pleasant, almost conversational. Mr. President, your budget proposed cutting Medicaid by $800 billion over 10 years. This would disproportionately affect black communities, where Medicaid coverage rates are highest. Can you explain your reasoning? Trump's response was heated, defensive. He called the question unfair and nasty. Crockett responded with the same gentle tone. I'm reading from your own budget document, page 37. Would you like me to show you? Mr. President, your administration separated over 5,000 children from their parents at the border. Internal documents show that no system was put in place to reunite them. Some children are still separated today. How do you respond? Trump's response was louder this time. He talked about criminals and invasion. His voice rose. Crockett waited for him to finish. Then, in the same calm voice, the question was about the children, Mr. President. Many of them were infants. Would you like to address that specifically? Mr. President, you've described predominantly black countries as shithole countries. You told 4 American congresswomen of color to go back where they came from. You claimed you were the least racist person in the room at the presidential debate. Help me understand how these statements fit together. Trump exploded. I've done more for black people than any president since Lincoln. Maybe more than Lincoln. The economy, the lowest unemployment, I created opportunity zones. Crockett let him rant. She didn't interrupt. She didn't argue. She just watched with that same slight smile. When he finally wound down, she spoke. Mr. President, I noticed that you're raising your voice. Trump froze. I've asked you 3 questions tonight, calmly, factually, with documentation, and each time your response has been louder than the last. She tilted her head. At the beginning of this broadcast, you called me full of rage. You said I was angry and hostile. You told the audience that these people, meaning black women, are always angry. She gestured at herself, hands still folded, voice still soft, expression still pleasant. Look at me, Mr. President. She gestured at him, face red, voice strained. posture aggressive. Now look at you. She let the contrast speak for itself. Which one of us is angry? A woman in the audience raised her hand. She was perhaps 60, black, wearing a simple dress. Joy Reid nodded at her. My name is Gloria Thompson. I'm a retired teacher from Baltimore, 32 years in public schools. Her voice was steady, but there was emotion underneath. I've been called angry my entire career. When I advocated for my students, angry. When I asked for resources, angry. When I pointed out inequities, angry. The angrier I supposedly was, the more I was actually just doing my job. She looked at Trump. Mr. President, do you understand that when you call black women angry, you're not just insulting us? You're giving permission. You're telling every white person watching that it's okay to dismiss us, that our concerns aren't valid, that we're just being emotional. Trump shifted. I call things as I see them. If someone's angry, I say so. It has nothing to do with race. But you didn't see anything. Gloria Thompson's voice hardened slightly. Congresswoman Crockett hadn't said a word when you called her full of rage. You saw a black woman and assumed anger. That's not calling it as you see it. That's prejudice. Another woman stood, younger, perhaps 35, professional attire. My name is Dr. Kesha Williams. I'm a pediatric surgeon at Johns Hopkins. Her voice was crisp, controlled. I operate on children's hearts. I make split-second decisions that determine whether a child lives or dies, and I have been called aggressive by colleagues for the same decisiveness that gets white male surgeons praised. She looked at Trump. When you call black women angry and hostile, you give cover to everyone who wants to dismiss us. Every administrator who ignores our concerns, every colleague who talks over us, every patient who asks for a different doctor because we seem intimidating. You normalize it. You make it acceptable. And that has real consequences for our careers, for our health, for our lives. Another woman stood, then another, then another. A lawyer who'd been called combative for the same advocacy that got white colleagues promoted. A professor who'd been called intimidating for maintaining the same standards as her white male peers. A CEO who'd been called difficult for making the same decisions that got white men called decisive. A military officer who'd been called aggressive for the same leadership style that got white men decorated. Story after story after story. The same pattern, the same stereotype, the same weapon. And through it all, Trump sat at his podium, his face getting redder, his posture more defensive. This is all very unfortunate, but... Another story. I can't control what other people... Another story. These are isolated... Another story. Crockett let it happen. She didn't need to speak. The women were doing the work themselves. Finally, after perhaps the 8th story, she spoke. Mr. President, you've heard from 8 black women in the last 15 minutes. 8 different women, from different backgrounds, different professions, different parts of the country, and every single one has described the same experience. She gestured at the audience. Do you still think this is isolated incidents? Do you still think your words have no impact? Trump's voice was strained. I can't control what happens in other people's workplaces. But you can control what you say. You can control whether you call black women angry before they've even spoken. You can control whether you reach for the oldest stereotype in American racism every time a black woman challenges you. And you've chosen not to control it. Every single time. Trump's self-control, what little remained, snapped. This is exactly what I'm talking about. His voice echoed through the studio. You people always do this. You twist everything. You make everything about race. Crockett didn't flinch, didn't move, just watched. I've done more for black people than any president in history. And this is the thanks I get? Being called a racist on national television? His face was crimson now. Veins were visible on his neck. You're the racist. You and Joy Reid and MSNBC and all the fake news media. You're the ones who see everything through race. He was pointing now, jabbing his finger in Crockett's direction. I don't have to stand here and take this. I don't have to. His microphone cut out. The producers had muted him. Trump kept shouting, but no sound came from the speakers. His mouth moved, his arms waved, his face contorted with rage. But all America heard was silence. And all America saw was Jasmine Crockett standing at her podium, hands folded, expression unchanged, watching the former President of the United States have a meltdown with his microphone cut off. She waited until his shouting subsided, until he stood there, chest heaving, realizing no one could hear him. Then she spoke. Her voice was exactly as calm as it had been at the start. Mr. President, for the past hour you have called me full of rage. You have called me angry. You have called me hostile. You have said that these people, meaning black women, are always angry. She paused. In that same hour, I have not raised my voice once. I have not interrupted you. I have not called you a single name. I have asked questions, shown documents, and requested answers. She gestured at him. You, on the other hand, have shouted so loudly that producers had to cut your microphone. You have called me nasty, racist, and unfair. You have waved your arms, pointed your finger, and turned a shade of red I genuinely didn't know skin could turn. She let that land. You walked onto this stage convinced that I would be the angry one. That I would prove your stereotype right. That you could dismiss everything I said because I'm just another angry black woman. She shook her head slowly. Instead, you proved something else. You proved that when you call black women angry, you're not describing us. You're describing what you become when we refuse to back down. Trump ripped his microphone off and threw it at the podium. It clattered to the floor with a sharp crack. This is a disgrace. A total disgrace. His voice carried without amplification, now raw, hoarse, the voice of a man completely unhinged. MSNBC is dead to me. Joy Reid is a racist. This whole thing was a setup. He stormed toward the exit. His handlers rushed from the wings, trying to intercept him, but he pushed through them. I'm the least racist person in any room. Any room. And you. He pointed at Crockett from across the stage. You're nothing. You're a nobody. You're just another angry. He stopped himself, but everyone heard the word he didn't say. Crockett just watched, still calm, still composed, still wearing that slight smile. Trump turned and fled through the stage door. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Joy Reid looked shell-shocked. The audience was frozen. For a moment, no one seemed to know what to do. Then Crockett spoke. Joy, I believe we still have some time. Would the audience like to continue the conversation? Her voice was exactly as calm as it had been at the start of the broadcast, as if nothing unusual had happened, as if the former President of the United States hadn't just had a screaming meltdown and run away. That was when people started to understand what they'd just witnessed. Crockett turned to face the camera directly. I want to speak to every black woman watching at home right now. Her voice was softer now, more intimate, but still calm, still composed. We know this feeling. We've lived it our whole lives. Being told we're angry when we're passionate. Being told we're hostile when we're direct. Being told we're too much when we're exactly enough. They use these words to silence us. To make us doubt ourselves, to make us shrink. She straightened her shoulders. Tonight you saw what happens when we refuse to shrink. When we stay calm. When we let them reveal themselves. She looked at the exit where Trump had fled. He came here expecting to face an angry black woman. He came here with a script in his head. The same script he's used for Maxine Waters, April Ryan, and every black woman who's ever challenged him. But the script didn't work, because I didn't play my part. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get flustered. I just stood here and asked questions. And what did he do? He shouted. He raged. He called me names. He had his microphone cut off because he couldn't control himself. And then he ran away. She paused. That's what the angry black woman stereotype has always been about. It was never a description of us. It was always a description of what they become when we refuse to be controlled. When we refuse to back down, when we refuse to disappear. They call us angry because it's easier than admitting they're afraid. Afraid of our competence. Afraid of our excellence. Afraid of women who look like us holding power. She smiled slightly. The angry black woman is a myth. But the terrified white man who created her? He's very real. And tonight you saw him. Red-faced, screaming, running away? She looked directly into the camera. So the next time someone calls you angry for speaking the truth, remember this night. Remember who was actually shouting. Remember who had their microphone cut off. Remember who ran away. And remember that you don't have to prove you're not angry. You just have to let them prove that they are. She picked up her folders. Neat, orderly, calm. Thank you for watching. Good night. The broadcast officially ended at 10:23 p.m. Eastern, 67 minutes ahead of schedule. By 10:45, one image dominated social media, a split-screen comparison. On the left, Crockett at the start of the broadcast, hands folded, slight smile, composed. On the right, Crockett at the end of the broadcast, hands folded, slight smile, composed. Below it, Trump at the start, confident, smirking. Trump at the end, screaming, red-faced, microphone being cut. Caption: Who's the angry one? The video was viewed 100 million times in 12 hours. By morning, it had passed 200 million. By the end of the week, it was the most viewed political clip in American history. #WhoIsAngry trended at number 1 worldwide. It stayed there for 3 days. Wow! She never raised her voice. Trended at number 2. Microphone cut. Trended at number 3. Angry black woman used ironically / reclaimed. Trended at number 4. At 2:34 a.m., Trump was still posting. The microphone was sabotaged. They cut me off because I was winning. This is election interference. At 3:07 a.m., Jasmine Crockett had an earpiece. Someone was telling her what to say. Very obvious. Someone should investigate. At 3:41 a.m., I was passionate, not angry. There's a big difference. Passion means you care. She was the cold, hostile one. Everyone could see it. At 4:15 a.m., can't sleep. Too angry about the unfair treatment. But we will win because America sees through the lies. His staff had tried to take his phone. He'd locked himself in his bedroom at Mar-a-Lago, rage posting into the void while America slept. By 6 a.m., he had posted 47 times. Screenshots of every post circulated on social media, compiled into threads that were viewed millions of times. He called her full of rage and then posted 47 times between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. One viral tweet observed. The projection is clinical at this point. He says he was passionate, not angry. Sir, they had to cut your microphone. Trump's Truth social account continued to explode. 10:47 p.m. Total setup. MSNBC rigged the microphone. They cut me off on purpose to make me look bad. 11:02 p.m. I was passionate, not angry. Big difference. Very big difference. Crockett was the hostile one. 11:24 p.m. Joy Reid is the real racist. MSNBC is the real racist. They're all out to get me. 11:48 p.m. The audience was paid agitators, not real Americans. Someone should investigate. 12:15 a.m. Jasmine Crockett is a nobody. Very low IQ. Everyone knows she's just an angry. The post was deleted after 2 minutes, but screenshots had already spread across the internet. The unfinished sentence, just an angry, became its own story. Everyone knew how it was supposed to end. 12:31 a.m. Going to sleep. But one thing is clear, I won tonight. I was calm and presidential. She was nasty and hostile. Everyone could see it. Total victory. The contrast between his claims and the video evidence became its own news story. Least self-aware post in political history. One outlet called it. Man who had microphone cut for screaming claims he was calm and presidential. Read another headline. The morning shows were unanimous. I've covered politics for 30 years, one anchor said, visibly shaken. I've never seen anything like it. She never raised her voice. Not once. Not a single time. And by the end, they had to cut his microphone because he was screaming so loud the audio was distorting. The split screen tells the whole story, another said. She was right. The angry black woman stereotype was never about black women. It's about the men who can't handle them. A black female commentator on CNN said it more simply. Every black woman in America watched that and thought, finally. Someone showed them. Someone finally showed them. On Fox News, the coverage was notably muted. No clips of the meltdown were played. No split-screen comparisons. The few commentators who addressed it seemed uncomfortable. Look, the president was passionate, one said carefully. He cares deeply about these issues. Maybe the passion got away from him a bit. He had his microphone cut off because he was screaming, the anchor pointed out. Well, yes, that happened. Even Fox couldn't spin this one. The video was too clear. The contrast was too stark. The man who called a black woman angry had literally had his microphone cut off for screaming while she stood there calm as a summer morning. The polls moved with unprecedented speed. Within 72 hours, Trump's support among black voters, already low, dropped another 8 points. He was now at 4% among black women specifically. But the more significant shift was among white voters, specifically white women. The split-screen image, calm black woman versus screaming white man, had changed something, shifted something, made visible something that had always been there but was easy to ignore. I never really understood what people meant by the angry black woman stereotype, one white woman told a focus group. I mean, I'd heard the phrase, but I thought it was, I don't know, based on something. But watching her, she was the calmest person I've ever seen. And he was screaming. Literally screaming. And then he called her angry. It was like watching a magic trick. I could finally see the illusion. Another. I work with a black woman who's been called aggressive by our boss. I never really questioned it, but now I'm going to pay more attention. I'm going to ask myself who's really being aggressive. A third. My daughter is 12. She's half black. I've been dreading the day someone calls her angry for standing up for herself. But now I have something to show her. I can tell her, look what this woman did. She stayed calm. She asked questions. She let him prove who the angry one really was. That's a gift. That's a roadmap. Within 2 weeks. Who's the angry one? Had become a catchphrase, a way to push back against dismissive language, a reminder that the people who call others angry are often projecting. Bumper stickers appeared, t-shirts, memes. A new generation of black women had a new answer to an old attack. 1 month after the broadcast, Jasmine Crockett returned to Congress. She did not give interviews about what had happened. She did not write op-eds. She did not appear on talk shows. When a reporter finally cornered her in the Capitol hallway, she shrugged. What is there to say? I asked questions. He answered them. The American people drew their own conclusions. But the impact, the polling, the who's angry moment, that wasn't about me. That was about every black woman who's ever been dismissed as angry for doing her job. Who's ever been told she's hostile for asking questions. Who's ever watched a man lose his temper and then get told she's the one with the attitude problem? She paused. I didn't create that moment. I just stopped pretending the stereotype was true. I stopped playing defense. I let him show everyone who he really is. The reporter asked one final question. What would you say to black women who watched that night and felt seen? Crockett was quiet for a moment. I'd say, you've always known. You've known your whole life that angry black woman is a lie. That it's a weapon used against you. That it says more about them than it does about you. What I did on that stage wasn't special. It's what black women do every single day. We stay calm when people expect us to explode. We stay professional when people try to provoke us. We do our jobs while people question our right to be in the room. The only difference is, This time 60 million people were watching. She smiled. And this time they saw the truth. Not about me. About him. About all of them. She turned and walked into her office. On her desk was a framed photograph, a gift from her staff, the split-screen image, calm Crockett on the left, screaming Trump on the right. Below it, in simple text, "Who's the angry one?" She looked at it for a moment. Then she sat down and got back to work. There was always more to do. But somewhere out there, millions of black women were walking into meetings and offices and classrooms with a new answer to an old attack. Someone calls you angry? Smile. Stay calm. Ask your questions. And let them prove who's really angry. 6 months later, Gloria Thompson, the retired teacher from Baltimore who'd stood up during the town hall, was interviewed by her local newspaper. "I've been called angry my whole career," she said. 32 years of teaching, and probably 32 years of being told I was too aggressive or too emotional, or too much. I'd started to believe it. I'd started to think maybe there was something wrong with me. She paused. Then I watched that night. I watched her stand there calm as anything while he screamed and raged and had his microphone cut off. And I realized, it was never about me. It was never about us. It was about them. About men who can't handle being challenged by black women. She showed the reporter a photo on her phone, a screenshot of the split-screen moment. "I show this to every young black woman I meet. I tell them, this is the playbook. Stay calm. Ask your questions. Let them show who they really are. They always do. They can't help it." The reporter asked what had changed since that night. "Everything," Gloria said. "And nothing. The world is still the world. People still call black women angry. But we have an answer now. We have proof. We have a road map." She smiled. "And we have that video. That beautiful, beautiful video of a grown man screaming while a black woman smiled." Dr. Kesha Williams, the pediatric surgeon who testified about being called aggressive, was featured in a medical journal article about bias in healthcare. "The response to that night was overwhelming," she said. "I received thousands of messages from black women in medicine, all with the same story, all called aggressive or intimidating for doing their jobs. But something shifted. Colleagues who never questioned the bias before started asking questions. Have I done this? Have I dismissed someone as angry when they were just being professional?" The conversation changed. She paused. "One of my colleagues, a white male surgeon who'd once called me intense in a negative way, came to me after the broadcast. He said, I watched that, and I saw myself in him. In Trump. The way he couldn't handle being challenged. The way he called her angry when she was the calmest person in the room. He apologized. Genuinely apologized. That's what visibility does. It makes the invisible visible. It makes the pattern undeniable." 1 year after the broadcast, Jasmine Crockett gave a speech at Howard University's graduation ceremony. "A year ago," she said, "I stood on a stage with a man who called me full of rage before I said a single word. He saw a black woman and assumed anger. He deployed a stereotype that's been used against us for centuries. And for 90 minutes, I stood there and smiled while he proved who the angry one really was." The graduates applauded. "I want to tell you something about that night. Something I haven't said publicly before." She paused. "I was angry. Not during the broadcast. I was calm then, focused, doing my job. But before and after. I was angry that I had to deal with it at all. Angry that black women still have to prove we're not the stereotype. Angry that composure is required of us in ways it's never required of others. But here's what I've learned, anger isn't the enemy. Losing control is. You can be angry and composed. You can be furious and focused. You can feel the rage and still choose how to use it. What I did that night wasn't about being calm because I'm not angry. It was about being calm because that was the most powerful choice. Because I knew that if I stayed calm, he would lose control. And he did. Exactly as I predicted. She looked at the graduates. You will be called angry. You will be called hostile. You will be called aggressive and difficult and too much. That's the world we live in. That's the price of being excellent while black and female. But you have a choice. You can internalize it. Believe them when they call you angry, shrink yourself to make them comfortable. Or you can recognize it for what it is, a weapon, and refuse to be wounded by it. Stay calm. Ask your questions. Let them show who they really are. They always will. She smiled. And when they do, the whole world will see the truth. Not because you told them. Because you showed them. The applause was thunderous. Voice over. He called her full of rage before she said a single word. By the end of the night, his microphone was cut because he couldn't stop screaming. The angry black woman stereotype has been used for centuries to silence black women. Tonight, one woman flipped the script. Not by arguing, not by shouting, but by being the calmest person in the room. If this story moved you, share it with a black woman who's ever been called angry for doing her job. Share it with anyone who's ever been told their strength is a weakness. And the next time someone tries to dismiss you as angry, remember, stay calm, ask your questions, let them show who they really are. Who's the angry one? You already know the answer.